This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Helping you find emotional, spiritual, and physical balance. What does your future hold? It's time to find out with Psychic Suzanna.
Yes, you're in the right place. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Now you can find us at PsychicSuzanna.com or 1110 KFAB. And when you join Life with Psychic Suzanna on Facebook, you'll find out what's happening on the show. And this past week was a week where we had a planned program, but we had to stop and we had to take a look. Are you aware that the violence in this world is something that we're always going to see and always be around? But how do we deal with it? What do we do? What do we tell our children how we deal with it? And so I'd like to dedicate this show to those who have lost their lives. Our beautiful principal, our Vicky. Did you know it was her birthday the day after the shooting? And did you know that she was so good to so many kids at Millard High? I mean, she has a history. And everyone she touched is touched by this horrific event. But I also want to say and dedicate this show to Gabrielle. Gabrielle is the 9-year-old girl who was at Christina Green's conference. She was there, and at the conference, she was brought by a friend because she had just been elected to the school council for government. So she was interested in government. Here's the interesting fact. She was born on 9/11. And her father said that being born on 9/11, it was about hope. And she was the hope for the future. So where is our hope now? What do we do in the middle of this pain? And for this pain, I have brought to the studio, I have brought to the air, Dr. Allan Gonsher. Yes, you've heard of him before. He is the president of Kids, Inc. What is Kids, Inc.? It's about helping children develop. I brought him on so he can help us understand what to do with the horrific things that we hear in the news. And by the way, if you were not listening to KFAB, you missed some spectacular shows. Everyone was on air right away. We topped it. We were right there when it happened. We guided you through it. We had interviews. When you need to talk, when you need to know what's happening, stick to 1110 KFAB. Right now, I'm going to Dr. Allan Gonsher. Hello, Allan.
Hi, Susanna. How are you doing?
I am doing well, much better than everybody. You know, I'm not worried about those who died. I am, because they're with the big guy and they're at peace. But I am worried about us who survive, us who see this horrific actions in the media. Tell us, what are the lessons that we can learn from this? How can we guide our children out of this drama?
Well, first, my heart goes out to all the families, including the young man that unfortunately killed people. I mean, a lot of lives were lost, senseless behavior.
Well, you know, I want to stop there just for a minute because I'm not ready to pray for him yet.
Okay.
I'm not ready to pray for him. You know, I think too often we let people not be responsible for their actions.
Right, and I'm not going to. That isn't the purpose of our talk today. But I know he has a family, and we should.
I pray for his family.
Right.
I
think one of the tragedies of these types of tragedies is that too many people want quick answers and quick fixes, and unfortunately, after being in the field for 30 years, I can conclude that they're not quick answers and quick solutions, and this just doesn't go away. So a couple thoughts I have is I'm not so concerned about how these situations come about, because I think we've spent years and years trying to analyze why children end up in this particular direction and are so disrespectful to human life. And we can spend time talking about that, but I'm more concerned is how do we help children understand and appreciate the tragedies like the killing of a vice principal. And I think, we're too quick into forcing our children to talk or forcing our children into feel. When tragedies like this happen, I'm talking about younger children. Mm-hmm. My expertise is younger children, 12 and younger, not the teenagers who will talk about everything and anything. Mm-hmm. But for younger children, I think it's very important to appreciate that whenever tragedies and traumas hit them, they go underground for a while. They'll ask a few questions, and then they go under the radar. And they try to get away from the pain and the disruption. And I think we have to be able to respect and honor the defense mechanism that these young children need to have and want to use in order to cope with such a bizarre, crazy event in their life.
So you're saying that if a child doesn't want to talk about it, not to force them to talk about it?
Right. But I think...
For how long?
Well, that's a good question, and, every human being is different. For some kids, it could be a few weeks. For some kids, it can be a few months, and every child is different. I mean, if you're dealing with a child who has experienced multiple traumas before something like this, boy, they can go underground for years.
Really?
You're dealing, you get a kid who maybe saw a parent shot, or they were raped or molested, or, those sorts of traumas, and then you throw in something like this for their sort of underdeveloped, innocent psyche. They want to say, I don't want anything to do with this. I want to be far away from this. I've already dealt with the pain in my life. And so they can go underground. And for some of these little kids, sometimes when they get into grown-uphood, adulthood, that's when they begin feeling and experiencing.
Wait. I've got two questions on that.
Sure.
How do we know that it won't fester into something where they act out?
Okay. Well,
horribly.
And the second question you have
is besides them acting out horribly, how do we know that it's not hurting them to not communicate? I mean, I've always thought the communication was the key.
Well, communication, this is a second point that I would want to make, and then I'll answer your question. That is, we often mistake that communication has to be verbal communication. Kids express themselves often in their play. They express their communication in their coloring. They express their communication in how they might pour a bowl of cereal. So we have to be able to be sensitive and insightful enough to watch, observe, have some sensitivity to our children, to our own children, to be able to appreciate that if a kid gets up every morning and used to have a bowl of Cheerios and now isn't having it, it might be that they're expressing something to us. I'll get to what we do with that, but I think we have to be insightful enough to know that if our child all of a sudden wets the bed, or our child all of a sudden becomes aggressive with a younger sibling, or maybe, the grades begin to drop, those are sure signs that maybe the child's saying something to us, and we have to be insightful enough to maybe at that point to use words to try to help the child express him or herself. But as a caveat to this, Susanna, is that unfortunately, I've seen this in my practice over and over again, is that parents come to my office and they say, my child has a problem with his anger. And I'll look at the mom and say, when you get angry, what do you do? And the mom will say, I slam doors and I yell and scream. And I'll look at the dad or the partner, whatever, and I'll say, and how do you express your anger? And they'll say, I get mad, I drink, or I walk out the door. So now you want me to help your child communicate anger differently than you do, right?
So it's not expressing the anger that's the problem.
Right.
It is finding a healthy way to do it.
Right. Apples don't fall far from trees, and many parents want me to make that apple into an orange.
Okay.
The reason I'm mentioning that is because once children begin expressing themselves, whether it be through their nonverbals, maybe that's the time that we start talking, quote unquote, with them or listening to them. Oftentimes we talk way too much. Maybe innocent comments like, seems like you've been down the last few days. You haven't eaten your Cheerios. Or is something bothering you? You're picking on your sister. Or are you thinking about what happened at that school 2 weeks ago? I mean, every way is really massaged and sort of directed to the temperament of your child. And then once the child starts talking, we have to be able to listen. I've always said, I've said this on your show, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. We have a tendency to talk too much. Mm-hmm. We need to listen. So if our child looks at us and says, Daddy, I hate that man who shot and killed the principal. I think he was bad. I wish he was dead. I wish he would bleed to death. Whatever, creative way they're going to start talking, we as the parent have to listen. And we can't say, oh, that's not nice to think that. We have to listen and say, tell me more. Tell me how mad or sad or scared you are. I think many parents aren't equipped to listen. They're more inclined to lecture and to tell their child what they should be thinking and feeling. So in a situation like this, going back now, in a situation like this, I think many kids are going to go underground. And in the next 6 months, I said this after the Von Maur incident, which was 4 or 5 years ago. In 6 months, we're going to start seeing the community act up. And mark my words, I said it then and it'll happen now. 6 months after the Von Maur incident, our practice, the referrals were incredible. Because kids were acting out in Omaha because they were all upset about what had happened 6 months prior. I think come the springtime, many kids are going to start acting out in ways, and that we're going to look at it and not have the clue that they're troubled by what happened here in December.
All right, we're going to take a little break. We're going to come back, and we're going to ask you how can we help the kids cope when they start acting out. What can we do as a parent?
Okay.
What
good.
we can do as an adult, even help other adults acting out. I mean, we're all we're all affected by this.
Absolutely.
This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. The show is about getting healthy. Stay tuned.
Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. She knew I was going to say that.
This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Please find us at 1110 KFAB at psychicsuzanna.com or KFAB. Join us on Life with Psychic Suzanna. Then you find out what we're coming up. And if there's any questions, anybody you want to hear from, please let us know. Also, you can join Susanna Stickney on Facebook. Both of those places keep you in charge of what's going on in my life. The thing that we're talking about today is violence. It smacks us in the face. We're sitting here, we're having a great day, and then all of a sudden we hear about someone who was loving to so many was shot by a tantrum. And we're talking now to Dr. Allan Gonsher about the tantrum. How do we prevent this, or can we prevent it? We cannot prevent this, is what you're telling me. There's no signs that our children are getting violent.
Well, I think Susanna, those two things are separate. One is preventing temper tantrums, and two, how do those temper tantrums get to the point where we had the situation?
Okay.
I think the first issue is you can't prevent temper tantrums. Let's be honest. The terrible twos are something that we carry throughout our life. Mm-hmm. What we can do is we can manage them better, and we need to teach children how to manage them better. And this is the old tried and true good parenting and helping children, fail in order to succeed, setting boundaries. And this, your show is not to talk about that, but it's a misnomer to say, let's get rid of temper tantrums. Kids have to, and grown-ups have to.
Yeah, I throw tantrums. Throw tantrums. I just don't harm others.
Right. That's
how do we teach the kids to have respect for life and responsibility for life?
That's a complicated question, but I would propose that when children have those when they're young, that we use things like reward systems or timeouts or whatever the method that we use, but we really have to not freak out because our child's having a temper tantrum. If we're in a supermarket and our child is having a temper tantrum, I don't know if that's the time to say, oh, honey, tell me what you're upset about. Maybe that's the time we pick up our child, we take them and put them in the car, and we said, you're going to be sitting here for 5 minutes until you stop that. Or at bedtime, that we have very set bedtimes. So I think there's a lot of different ways to manage temper tantrums. So as children get older, they will have temper tantrums like you and I, but it will be appropriate temper tantrums. We might even say to someone, I'm so angry with you, I want to just turn these things over on your desk. And then you walk out and you say, I'm not going to do that, but that's how angry I am. Maybe we do it verbally. Maybe we go work out. Maybe we go and help the unfortunate. But, we have to teach the children how to, when they have that excessive anger, we have to have boundaries around them so they don't get out of control. But in addition to that, we have to give vehicles by which they can express it, even if it's inappropriate. So, for example, toys and play are wonderful ways that kids can let them out. I mean, if you let kids play dollhouse, you will hear and sense their rage, their anger, their temper tantrums being played out in that. And maybe if you saw Toy Story, you see, sometimes toys get thrown around. Sometimes toys have fights and arguments, and kids can express it that way. Sometimes getting a whole bunch of army men together and having them fight. Maybe getting Play-Doh and smashing and slapping Play-Doh can really help kids sort of get that aggression out. Coloring, sometimes music, sometimes running. But there's lots of different things that we don't think about. I think there's two parts here. One is how do you set limits on the child who's out of control, and then the second is how do you give them vehicles to express some of their rage. But I just want to point out to you something that I learned years ago, is that little boys do mads real well. They don't do sads real well. And when they can't do sads, they intensify their mads. And little girls do sads very well. They can't do mads, and so they intensify their sads.
Ooh.
So whatever feelings that kids are expressing to us, we have to be very cautious that just because we see a lot of mads, there might be underlying sads about it. Lots of kids in the next 3 to 6 months can be acting out in many aggressive ways. Maybe what they're really saying is they're sad about someone who died. Maybe they're saying, I'm afraid. And if we just look at the mad part, then we're going to lose the whole picture of what the child might be expressing to us. Okay.
We're going to take a little break. I'm going to, when we come back, we have two things I want to ask you. Number one, the shame of a parent. I mean, I've had a child throw tantrums, and I've not known how to handle it. I mean, and here, look what I do. I mean, I couldn't figure it out. The shame of a parent that might be going through this. The shame of a parent not knowing how to handle this. We're going to come right back with Dr. Allan from Kids Inc. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna. You stay here. You grow with us. Let's make the world a better place with peace in our heart. We'll be right back. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. You can find us at PsychicSuzanna.com or KFAB.com, where you can have a signal of this and listen to this program again. We have on with us Dr. Allan Gonsher. He is here from Kids Inc., and Kids Inc. is helping children develop. He's here to help us understand the madness, how to cope with the madness, how to communicate with the madness. In 2 weeks, we're going to have someone talking to us about the spiritual side of the madness and how to find calmness in the middle of chaos. It's an important lesson, and we've got to keep at it. Dr. Allan, we're running short on time, so I'm going to ask, can I keep you on after the 8 o'clock hour?
I'll work my schedule, yes.
Okay. Tell me, what, and then after the 8 o'clock hour, let's talk about reassuring our children. But right now, is there a quick fix or something you can tell us that can tell us as a parent when our child throws a tantrum, and
Right.
we're right in the middle of it. What do we do?
Real quickly, Susanna, I'll really quickly talk about that, but I think we have to get to some techniques which will help our children in 3 to 6 months. But here's the problem. When you're in public and your child is acting out, you're in a lose-lose situation. You have to accept it. If you do nothing, you're a weenie parent. And if you do something, you're a meanie parent. And so if your child's acting out, I guarantee you, if you're the weenie parent, it'll happen again and again and again.
Okay.
If you're the meanie parent and you say to your child, I'm picking you up, I'm taking you out, and the entire place recognizes that you're doing something, everyone will say, oh, my, how mean that parent is. I guarantee you at least you have a 50% chance your child's not going to do that again. So embarrassment when you're in public, that's a given when you have children. And you have to just say, I've got a lose-lose situation, cut my losses, take care of it, and move on. If you don't take that attitude, I guarantee it'll happen again and again and again.
What at home, though? Let's go at home.
At home, then it's not an issue of embarrassment. It's an issue of can you do it? It's not, I mean, who can be embarrassed unless there's a grandparent around or an aunt or an uncle?
You know, it's just sort of like you feel like your kids shouldn't do this. Why are they doing this? No.
Well, that's a fallacy in thinking, because if you think your children shouldn't be doing something, then you have no clue how children should be, because children have to act out. Children have to be oppositional.
Okay.
So we have to accept that principle.
All right. We will be right back with Dr. Allan Gonsher. He's going to be talking to us about how we can help our children. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Please stay tuned. We're here to empower you. Yes, you're right where you need to be. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. You can find us at PsychicSuzanna.com, where you have the schedule of what I'm doing. You go to KFAB.com, every show we've had, and we've had some doozies that will empower you, will be listed. This show will be up by Wednesday. Pass it around so you can help others handle life a little bit better. We're talking today about violence. We're talking about how we can deal with violence within the family, help our children deal with it when they stuff it down, how we move forward with it. We have Dr. Allan Gonsher on. Dr. Gonsher?
Yes.
I'm saying your name wrong, aren't I?
No, you did it right this time.
Oh, my God, I'm working on it so bad.
You're working on it.
I called your wife.
I know.
And I said, I'm really worried about that because I have a problem with it. And you are with Kids, Inc.?
Yes.
And you're located here in Omaha. Can you give us your number?
Well, we're located. We also have 2 clinics in Overland Park, Kansas.
Okay.
The number you can reach us is at 402-330-4014, or on the internet at kids-incorporated, spell out incorporated.com, kids-incorporated.com.
Okay, so we're coming back to you, and we're looking to you to help us understand or give us ideas on how we can help our children when they see violence like this on the TV and hear it on the radio. How can we help them?
So one of the things I said in the first half an hour is that kids are going to go underground. So I have a couple suggestions for parents who want to help their kids as they're underground to maybe come up ground in a more constructive way. One thing is bedtime, and for sure firstborn kids, bedtime is what I call their soft moments. All you have to do is go into a bedroom right before a firstborn goes to bed, and you say, how was your day? And they are like putty, and they will tell you everything. And you have to be willing to listen. So they might say, my day was terrible, I hated it, I flunked 3 tests, I got into a fight. But you have to be able to listen, and that's their time that they're going to dump and unload and share with you their feelings. You know, if there's something you have to address on your way out, you'll say, tomorrow we'll talk about it. But that's your moment to learn how to listen, and that's their moment to be able to share with you some of their thoughts and feelings. So in light of what happened in Omaha this past week, it might be worthy of us to lay down in the next few weeks with our children and say, how was your day? Or are you still thinking about what happened at Millard? You know, and if the moment is right, they will share it with you. Okay. Another thing that I do is what I call The 10-second commercial. What's the 10-second commercial?
10-second commercial.
Right.
Okay, give it to me.
Okay, 10-second commercials. You're driving down the street, and out of the nowhere with your kid in the car, you say, that was a terrible thing that happened at Millard. Don't say anything else. 2 days later, as you're doing the dishes and your kid's around, you'd say, I hate when things like this happen. 3 days later, when you're, putting them to bed, and you say something like, what a terrible tragedy when someone dies. And in about the fourth or fifth time you send out one of those 10-second commercials, your kid's going to look at you and say, Mommy, what are you talking about? And then you, in a very innocent way, you say to your child, what do you mean? And they'll say, well, the last few weeks, all you keep talking about is what happened at Millard and people dying and stuff like that. And that's our opportunity to look at our kid and say, what do you think? Well, I think it's stupid and la, la, la. It's like fishing. You sent out the worm, you got a couple nibbles, and then finally they bite. So what you have to do is sort of set the stage of just little things to let them know that you haven't forgotten, you're putting it out there, and they have a chance to think about it, to respond to it at their pace when they're ready to think about it. And one last suggestion is art projects are wonderful ways to let kids express themselves. With little girls, the first and the second picture are typically not worth looking at. It's the third picture. First and second picture will be a happy, sunny rainbow. Everyone's happy. By the third picture, there'll be more black, there'll be more coloring, there'll be more expression. I think if we give...
Is that in a time period?
Pardon me?
Is that in a time period?
Yeah, no, that's as you sit there and you draw, the first picture will always be pretty. The
okay,
second
so we have to sit with them and let them draw.
Yeah, I mean, listen, children aren't fast food, in and out. You got to, and that's the other thing I strongly encourage outside of this topic is that every week, every kid is entitled to a half-an-hour date with their parent. They should have a half an hour every week where there's undivided attention by the parent, where you're not spending money, you're not playing stupid video games, and you're looking eyeball to eyeball, touching, looking, playing, enjoying. And those will be opportunities that your kid, maybe in 3 months, will say to you, Mommy, I'm still thinking about. Or you look at your child and you say, I'm still troubled by that Millard stuff. What are you thinking? And that's the verbal way that we might get kids to practice a little bit more effectively on what they're thinking and feeling about what happened at Millard.
Wow.
So those are 4 suggestions for you.
I appreciate you being on at the last moment to help us guide us through this drama that we're going with. By the way, as a grown-up, I love playing with Play-Doh.
Well, good.
Okay. I just want to, I don't know if you want to sit me on a couch and talk about that, but, listen,
Susanna, kids have to see that, the play world is not just kids. It's us, too. They have to see that we know how to unwind. We know how to let out our feelings and not just verbally, too. So.
Well, okay, I'm safe with that then.
You're very safe.
Okay. I want to tell you one other thing that I used to do when my youngest son was from 7 on up. I took him out to lunch once a week.
There you are.
And we sat face to face with each of my kids. I tried to do that. And we sat. Matter of fact, I used to do that with my husband. And I still do that with my husband, and he's still my best friend.
There you are.
So that communication thing is an important thing.
See, Susanna, when I started our interview by saying it's complicated, but you know what? The bottom line is what we're going to do is not complicated. It's being with people. It's being available to our children. It's being able to do the basic stuff. It's how to have human contact with our children. I think that is a preventative way of this sort of behavior getting to the outrageous part that to the extreme that it got to. But we got to do it at a younger age with our children.
Well, one of the things, though, when I talked earlier about shame, when your kids act out, even in school, you feel like you should have done something about it,
Right.
You should know what to do. But we're learning, and as we learn, I want to thank you for coming on the air with us.
Well, you're welcome for inviting me. I know that I'm sort of a regular for you, and I'm flattered that you think of me and trust me in what I have to share. And if I can be of some help to the community, I'm always available. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you'll leave us with your phone number one more time.
Okay, it's Kids Inc. at 402-330-4014. or at kids-incorporated, spell out incorporated.com, and you can always call, and I'm more than happy to talk with anyone.
Thank you very much,
Okay,
Dr.
be well and
Gonsher.
have a good year, Susanna.
I will.
Okay, bye-bye.
This is Life with Psychic Suzanna. When we come back, we're going to go to your phones. We're going to talk about what's on your mind. It's amazing that we still have life and we still move forward. And no matter how big our problem is, it's not as big as we think it is if we communicate and talk about. I again want to applaud Scott and Tom, how they took over the show and the stories that were happening this past week, how they were on top of it, how they kept us informed and alert. We want to give a special prayer to the families of Christina Green, who was born on a 9/11, and her father thought it was a meaning of goodness. And we also want to thank special prayers to Vicky Casper's family, who we lost a great teacher here. We lost somebody who really worked at helping us all be better. And thank God there are beautiful people out there, and they get to reap the rewards. We are coming back with your calls. The numbers are what, Jim?
We have a toll-free number, 1-800-543-1110, and then locally, 558-1110.
This is Life with Psychic Suzanna. Be here with us.
Psychic Suzanna.
Can't get through on the radio show? Call Psychic Suzanna anytime at 712-276-9349. That's 712-276-9349. Or visit her webpage, PsychicSuzanna.com.
It's 8:21, and this is 1110 KFAB.